Hey everyone, welcome to latest episode of Tuesdays with Perry. It is episode 125 of Tuesdays with Perry. Welcome to the episode today. We're obviously going to be talking about Trump's successes in the Middle East. I think I want to talk a little bit about Charlie Kirk's Congressional Medal of Freedom. I know Perry wants to talk about Crossfire Hurricane and Javier Milei, who is the Argentinian president, libertarian economist, president of Argentina. And we're going to be talking about a couple other things as well. So let's see if we can't get Perry on the line on this beautiful evening.
Hello?
Hey, Perry, are you there?
Rudy.
Hey, what's up?
You there, Rudy?
Can you hear me?
I was talking to myself. I can finally hear you. Yes.
Oh, good. How are you doing tonight, my brother?
Man, it's another beautiful night down here. I hate to admit I'm not smoking a stogie, but it's still a beautiful night. 68 degrees at 9:20. It's all good. It's just wonderful to be alive and be free.
In the beautiful free state of Florida. So I know you
Very good.
I know you wanted to talk about a couple things. Let's start with Trump in the Middle East. He had a whirlwind tour. He spoke to the Israeli Knesset. I'm saying that correctly. And Then he went over to Egypt and spoke to Arab leaders there, all in one fell swoop. And people are commenting that it's just amazing how he could go from one group of people to another, and everybody seems to want to please U.S. President Donald Trump.
Well, he's Big Daddy, and I'm not the first person to say it. You have world leaders admitting to that. I mean, Mark Rutte said it himself. So, what I really have found amazing about the events of the past 2 weeks, last week on your show, I said, peace is not here, but it's on the way. It's still not here because as I mentioned, my concerns were whether or not, and I said this last week, Hamas would abide by all of the conditions of the agreement. And there have been reports that came out of Israel today that there have been skirmishes. That's not unusual. What concerned me was what Trump said in the Oval Office today when a reporter asked him the question, well, what if they refuse to disarm? He said, we'll make them. We will disarm them. And so this is a little bit of what I'm concerned. One thing that people are probably going to hold over the heads of whatever remains of the remnants of the Hamas leadership is, well, where are all the other deceased hostages? And as I said to my better half, I don't know if they're ever going to find all of them. When Israel started pounding Hamas a year and a half ago, when they pretty much took the one hand that was behind the back of the IDF and said, okay, you can use both your left and right fist now. Hamas started dispersing all of the hostages, going here, going there. They were pushed into tunnels. And as those tunnels were navigated and ultimately fought over by the IDF and Hamas, the IDF couldn't find every living person, whether a hostage or a militant. And so my fear is that if we get as many as 20 of the 28 now deceased hostages' bodies back, it'll be a minor miracle. Not because they don't want to give them over, because they don't know where they are. And that's something that these families in Israel are going to have to come to terms with. That is a concern. It's not what's going to break whatever agreement Trump has managed to broker. But I am concerned about Hamas going back on their word. And it's going to come down to Big Daddy saying to them, you got until, high noon tomorrow, or whatever day he wants to give them, because he didn't announce a day. He just said it's going to be soon. If they refuse to submit to his will, well, then Israel's going back in. And so that's why last week I said, peace is not here, but it's on the way. These are the things we're going to have to come to terms with. Now that's me putting cold water on what was accomplished by Trump. What I'm really excited about is how he basically bitch slapped the European Union. He dragged them all to Egypt and Sharm el-Sheikh, and basically told them, you're going to be nothing more than window dressing for me. I'm going to do all the talking. And come to find out today on Fox News that the Brits were trying to bust up this possibility of peace. They weren't a broker of it. They were standing in the way. And I think that's one of the reasons why Trump insisted they all be there, so that they can show that they're standing behind him in his will to make this happen. I found that very interesting. And it's part of the reason why, I'm calling it triumphant Trump.
Yeah.
Because he has really bent the will of the world to his demand, that there's going to be peace. Yeah. And I found that interesting.
Everybody wants.
The other thing I found.
Yeah, go ahead.
Huh?
Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing I found interesting was, surprise guest party was there. Who was that? The Iranians.
Really?
And yes, they were at Sharm el-Sheikh, and they had their tails between their legs. They weren't saying, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. They pretty much just nodded and bobbed their heads. Yes, sir. We're with you. I found that really, really interesting.
Yeah, that is a good thing. I didn't realize that. So my concern, of course, was once the hostages were returned, that things were gonna go south, and you did have Trump say, well, now Hamas, now you have to disarm, when they gave up all their leverage. So if you didn't hear on the news recently, Hamas is going around trying to execute everybody they think is a traitor, and people that worked for Israel and whatnot. So
well, and keep in mind, they're getting some of their medicine right back at them. There are, and this is what I've read from stories from Israel, there are militias that have formed. And as I said on prior shows going back to last year, Rudy, not every Palestinian in Gaza wants to martyr their children. There are a lot of Palestinians, both in and outside of Gaza, that want peace with Israel. They want their lives back. And these are the people who were starting to point out when the food trucks were being hijacked months ago by Hamas. They were ratting them out. And the Israel, now they're being called collaborators with the Israelis. They really weren't. They just wanted their food. And, when you look at how emaciated these Israeli hostages were, and when I pointed that out to someone I had a conversation with yesterday, he said, well, so are the Palestinians. I said, really? I saw a lot of fat, older Palestinian women begging for the food trucks to give them flour or rice or whatever. If you're emaciated, you don't look like that. If you look at the few warriors of Hamas that they were willing to let the press take video of, every one of them was fighting fit. If you're in starvation mode, you don't look anything like that. You look like that poor young Israeli he looked like he was a victim of the Holocaust. And thank God he's back home in Israel now. But my point being is, this is the argument I've been making all along. Food was getting through. Nobody wanted to hear it because everybody wanted to blame Israel. And so now it's up to them. Stage 2 starts now, and they have to disarm. Those who are willing to beg for mercy will be allowed to stay. Those who don't want to live in peace will be granted. I don't know what Arab nation is going to want to take them, but they're supposedly going to be granted an opportunity to exile themselves. And then, we go from there to step 3, which is the physical rebuilding stage. And that is a very big word here. When I say rebuilding, as I said last week, the bulldozers aren't coming in this week. They didn't come in last week. They're not coming in this week. They probably won't be coming in next week.
Yeah.
But the rebuilding is going to start now. Trump will be overseeing this. The Arab nations have already said they're going to step up to the plate and make sure the money is available, and
provide
without having a terrorist
and provide troops. So the Muslim nations,
right?
They got to put peacekeepers in there because we're not putting Western soldiers in the middle of Gaza.
Well, why should we?
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, there are going to be some Marines there. Unfortunately, I say that because I'm an American first. I'm a Jewish man second, and I don't want any more bloodshed of my countrymen, especially for foreign wars that we really shouldn't be physically involved in. And so I understand we have to have a token force there, but that's what always scares me. When you have a token force, they're not secured. They don't have the heavy armor to protect them. It's a real risk that, what Trump is counting on is having, again, air quote, token American forces on the ground outside, not inside, but outside of Gaza, is going to give the Arab countries' military forces a sense of security and knowing, okay, well, the Americans are here. At least we know we have them if we need them. Yep. For whatever purpose, Yeah. And so it's a new day, and I'm so proud of my president because no other man who's ever sat in that office has ever gotten to this point. Not even close. Not even close.
Right.
And so it's going to be interesting to see how the next 4 to 8 weeks move forward. It really will be.
Yeah, he exceeded expectations, obviously, as he often does. Winning. He's winning.
Winning the trade.
Winning.
You know what the other thing that's really interesting is watching the Democrats who are willing to eat crow.
Right.
Hildebeest ate crow, but she won't give him credit by name. she said the president.
No, she said
Or-
Trump. She said Trump. It was Kamala Harris that
Did
said
she?
the president and his team.
And his team, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So I guess that means Lutnick and.
No, Lutnick will be involved now. It's
not
Witkoff.
Witkoff. I'm sorry, I said Lutnick. I meant
and
Witkoff.
Witkoff, his son-in-law Kushner, and Marco.
Right.
He gave a lot of props to Marco. Marco is probably the one that was able to put the deal to bed.
Who
Witkoff is the one who got everyone negotiating and put the deal together, and Marco's probably how it got closed.
Yeah, who would have thought that Marco Rubio would be toting the line in the Trump administration? Crazy.
Well, Trump even pointed that out.
Yeah.
He said that, I think, over the weekend. Matter of fact, he said it there at Sharm el-Sheikh. He said, Marco, would you have ever believed that you would be working for me in my administration this time around? It just goes to show I know how to pick good people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to move on and a couple other things here. So Trump was named, I guess, Man of the Year for Time Magazine, but they used a terrible photo of him with a disappearing hairline. Obviously, that was done on purpose. They had to give him Man of the Year because everybody's still clamoring about the Peace Prize. So they gave him Man of the Year, but they showed a poor photo of him. And then Trump responded, the Energizer Bunny that doesn't sleep, responded on Charlie Kirk's birthday by awarding him posthumously the Congressional Medal of Freedom.
No, the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
Presidential Medal of Freedom, excuse me. Yep.
Right. It looks almost like it, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
Nor should it be.
Right. Surprisingly enough, with a cross on it above Charlie's name.
Yeah. Well, what impressed me even more than him doing that, which I would have expected nothing less, but for him to do it under the traveling conditions and the responsibilities overseas that he had in the 48 hours leading up to the Rose Garden event. It's breathtaking.
Yeah.
It's breathtaking how this man, like you say, he's the Energizer Bunny. And what really impressed me more than this was how Erica presented herself. I watched a DVR version of The Five earlier this evening, and I'm not a big fan of her name just went out of my head. Bush's former press secretary. She's on The Five. She sits next to Greg.
Oh,
anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know why her name just went out of my head.
No, the blonde woman. Yep.
Yeah. But she nailed it. Those were her words. She wrote those words. It's not the first time we've seen her give a speech. And she described the speech as almost poetic. And it really was. If you did not watch Erica's acceptance of the posthumous award given to her late husband, you really should watch it. Because, it moves you to the sniffles, but it's the words she chose. And she kept bringing it back. Most of the people in that audience today representing Turning Point were all high school and college kids.
Right.
And that speech was aimed at them because she said, in no certain terms, you are the future. You will be carrying the torch that my husband lit. And man, oh man, I'd love to be behind the scenes to see how she's running TPUSA right now because she's amazing. She really is amazing.
Right.
I know why he knew during that job interview that he didn't want her working for him. He wanted to marry that girl. He knew it the first time he laid eyes on it, and now I know why.
Yep.
So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up about Charlie getting the award as he rightfully deserved.
Indeed, indeed. And then we have, I know you wanted to talk a little bit about Trump welcoming Javier Milei, who is the Argentinian president. So speaking of the Energizer Bunny, Rust never sleeps. Trump not only did his whirlwind Middle East tour, he awarded Charlie Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom and also welcomed Javier Milei. So you know what's going on here, right? Because what we have is so the soybean farmers in the United States are in a pickle because we have the tariff trade war going on with China. So they're not buying our soybeans. And so Trump wants to bail out the farmers, but he figured out something else that he could do. The biggest importer of soybeans beside China exporter of soybeans beside the United States is Argentina. So China.
So guess who's going to be selling our soybeans?
Well, right. No, what he did is he goes, we'll bail you out. So we're going to be providing some financial economic assistance to Argentina with the condition that they're going to stop selling soybeans to China. So we'll see where that gets us in dealing with China because they have to have their tofu. And that comes from soybeans if people didn't know. So Trump welcomed Milei. Any other insights you have about this meeting? He is a libertarian economist that won the presidency of Argentina, has turned that country around from 130% inflation, getting the economy straightened out there. But obviously he has his fans and his detractors.
Well, he's going to, because of course, when you take people's goodies from them, they're not happy. And there's a lot of people that worked as members of the apparatus within the Argentine government before he was elected that now either don't have a job or aren't getting enough pay to cover all their expenses. But whatever the case may be, those people are not very happy. And, when you try to clean up a mess, an economic mess that was left for you by your predecessor, there's going to be pain. There's pain being felt by us in this country, even though things are definitely looking up. And so I think the other reason why he asked Milei to come was basically to give him a pep talk and say, stay the course. Don't get weak-kneed. Don't worry about, I think their elections are coming up this year, are they not?
Well, soon. I think soon the elections are coming up soon.
Yeah. And so, his party is worried about the socialists regaining control in the legislative chamber. And, I think that was another reason why Trump wanted to talk to him face to face is, look, stay the course.
Yeah.
We need to finish the job that people like you, Lou Kelly, myself started. And we have to further the goal of bringing freedom and liberty back to Brazil, back to Venezuela, and I'm sure he said, I'll handle the big stuff. You handle what you're capable of handling. So I think that was another reason why Milei was here.
Yeah. He's,
that
whole formula that Javier Milei is imposing on Argentina is minimalist government especially from an economic conservative standpoint. So it's going to be a template for everybody, showing how conservative economics can work. And that's why I think it's so
Right.
important that he succeeds. And as far as social, and especially Bukele in El Salvador, how crime reform and all these things that Republicans want to do, how they can be proved out in other countries, just like the Democratic Socialists keep trotting out Finland and other places and go, look, socialism works. When that's not really a lie. So we need our own templates out there that are going to prove out to be successful.
Right. And, on a slightly different note, same thing, you kind of touched on it, same thing can be said about applying the law. You look at what's going on in this country right now. You have two major cities where the federales were embraced by the local government. First one was Washington, D.C., where she really didn't have a choice. She had to roll over because Trump runs Washington, D.C., whether the Democrats want to admit it or not. He has ultimate say. And so the first signs of proof that restoring law and order to a big city such as Washington, D.C., you're not seeing these stories in the alphabet channels. You're never going to see it in the New York Slimes or the Washington Compost. You're going to see it in alternative media with podcasters like yourself, or on X, or other news channels on Rumble, because they don't want to report just how thankful people in the inner city of Washington, D.C., and now Memphis, where even though he's a Democrat, the mayor of Memphis welcomed the federal troops and law and order, whether it was ICE or border patrol, all the federal authorities that have shown up in Memphis have quelled the violence in a matter of days. And so now Trump has the ability to point to two startling examples of how quickly we can rid the streets of this nation's cities of crime. Not if we have to put federalized troops everywhere, but when you start to arrest people for breaking the law, whether it's running a vehicle into a federal officer, or whether it is stealing a computer, or whether it is even walking out of a Walbaum's or a Walmart with a piece of meat because you can't afford to pay for it. When you start holding people accountable under federal law, not local, for their crimes, however large or small, you're taking recidivism off your streets. And that's the point of doing what Trump is doing in these big cities. So let baby back ribs Pritzker play his game. Let the little communist four-eyed prick in Chicago play his games, because the people of Chicago are saying, we want the feds. We want what they have in Washington, D.C. now. We want what they're now getting in Memphis. We want to be able to walk our streets at 10 o'clock at night and not worry about whether we'll make it home or not. We want that. We don't care what you want, Brandon.
Right.
And so I honestly believe the more they push back, the harder it's going to get for them, not easier. Even with these federal judges playing the game that they're playing, ultimately, Trump is going to get his way, because the whole purpose of federal troops, or federalized troops, from Texas being brought into Chicago is not necessarily to run amok throughout the streets of the south side of Chicago. It is to protect federal assets that are already there.
Right.
And, you know, if it goes wider than that, then it'll go wider than that. So my attitude is, as what he's done in the Middle East, he's now going to do it in the big cities here in our country.
Yeah. Obstruction and assault is not protesting. Sorry to say.
Correct.
So, and
Correct.
that's my thing. So you had this other point here, how the Democrats are projecting their authoritarianism onto Trump in his second term. What do you mean by that?
Well, they've been running around, whether it's Obama or whether it's Kamala or, you know, pick your poison. They are all running to the television cameras, and they're saying, including elected members of Congress, how Trump is being an authoritarian. And of course, I'm screaming at the TV, you mean like Uncle Joe did during the dark days of COVID, where healthcare professionals were deplatformed for saying they had a solution for COVID, or for first responders and members of the military being thrown out of the service because they refused to get vaxxed and being deplatformed so that they couldn't share their story online with other people? You mean that kind of authoritarianism? Show me where he's being an authoritarian.
No, he's not. He's upholding the law. So what he's doing is they have the judges put a stay there to make it seem like it's illegal, but it's not really illegal, and they know that. They're just delaying the inevitable. What he's doing is perfectly legal. You could send in federal officers to enforce federal crime and border crime, which is a federal responsibility. So the funny thing is, what I thought about Eric Swalwell and all these other knuckleheads cheerleading No Kings. I brought it up today, and I'm going to continue to bring it up until the No Kings protest, is that Republicans were anti-monarchy. That's the whole point of the Republic ever since Plato's Republic, is that was anti-Caesar. That's a giving power back to the people. Why are they going after Republicans with a No Kings event? Republicans have always been no kings. Well,
because they've always been successful in the past at projection.
Yeah, right.
And they're trying it. They're going to continue to try it because that's their playbook. They've got nothing else. So my attitude is, go ahead. You're not going to win anyone. You're not going to gain any converts to your thinking because of what you just pointed out, Rudy.
Yeah.
You know,
and we're
the ones who believe in freedom and the power of the individual. You're the one who's saying, if you're not with us, you're against us. You're a part of the Borg.
Yeah.
We're not like that at all. And so,
yeah,
go ahead.
The first No Kings was a flop too. So that's what I predict for this one. Also,
I don't know if this one will be a flop, but the important thing is the more they try to pull these shenanigans, the more information we're getting. I'm going to go back to one of my Goombas, Dan Bongino, and he said twice, once before he took the oath in his studios, and once since he took the oath of service, he put on his X account, there will be many things you will not hear about until there is a case against these individuals and groups that we are now going after.
Right.
And so, you know, when people scream about, and when I say you're guilty of it, it's not that I'm trying to admonish you. I'm just pointing out people are screaming, we want the Epstein files. I want them too. But to me, that's not more important than getting our country back. Epstein right now, first of all, the piece of garbage is dead, even though you think he may still be alive. Put that aside. He's dead. The people who were victimized supposedly are going to have their opportunity to name names. Let them name names. And once they do, let's see what the government does. I do not want us, meaning people that are to the right of center, to get sidetracked with this now what I consider side show. And that's what it is to me, because the people who wronged these young women are never going to see a day in court. Whoever they are, whether they are industrialists, whether they hold elected office, whether they are royalty, they're not going to get justice no matter what we want. But our justice, meaning the victims, will be their opportunity to name who did whatever they did to them. And that to me will suffice.
Yeah.
Because like I said on prior shows, we have a country to save right now. And you know, if it were that, if we already know Trump is not named in this, because if he were, they would have had him dead to rights 2 years ago. So I'm not concerned about that. What bothers me is, why was he told not to release all this information? Who are we protecting?
Right.
That bothers me.
Yeah, I think that there is planted evidence in there that implicates Trump. Plus, we know Trump did ride on Epstein's jet before. So I think they're going to try to, if his name comes up at all, try to pin it all on Trump. And I think it would be a distraction. And I think that's why they just want to keep it off the table. What I've accounted so far, it seems like that is what it is there's no point in bringing it out to debate whether or not the artifacts are authentic or not, or the evidence about Trump is authentic or not. They're going to try to implicate him, and it's just going to be a distraction from his agenda. So I think it was kind of the thing, why bring it up? And I think definitely when they found out that it seemed like Comey and his cohorts before they left decided to, put in a poison pill there, and whether it's authentic or not. The Wall Street Journal went ahead and published that birthday card, which I don't think was authentic. Trump claims it wasn't. I just think it's a big distraction to deal with at this point. You want to do it at the end of his term. I think we got, like you said, we have a lot more work to do otherwise. And going back to the No Kings thing, I think, as you know, that Chuck Schumer and the Democrats are trying to keep the government shut down until No King's Day, to try to frustrate the Democrats as much as possible, so that they're going to have a better turnout. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think people are tired of it. And I think the assassination of Charlie Kirk actually just put a bad taste in people's mouths. And I think this saber rattling from Democrats and progressives in the street, as much as Chuck Schumer wants them to do that, I just don't think there's the will amongst the greater electorate, not the disaffected street soldiers, the fat blue hairs, and the black-clad anarchists. I mean, just normal people.
Right. And keep in mind, as the FBI and the Justice Department as a whole gains the intelligence they need to go after the street thugs I'm talking about street level organizers, go after the street thugs, who will then roll over on their masters, who will then eventually roll over on the puppet masters, the people, and I'm using his name in a generic term, the George Soros of the world, okay, the Bill Gates. That's why I'm saying Bongino has said, we're getting the information. It's going to take time. You're going to have to be patient.
Yeah, it's a shell companies within shell companies within NGOs,
right?
Within umbrella organizations, and like they said, Antifa. There's no Antifa. It's not. Yeah, Antifa is a term. You think any anarcho-communist in the street with fireworks? You think they're carrying a card that says Antifa on it? I mean, it's just not realistic. They'll get to the bottom of it. Which brings me to the last subject we're going to discuss here today is why Crossfire Hurricane, which was the FBI operation to undermine Trump, why that dwarfs Watergate.
Yeah, I read an article that was partially penned by Mike Davis, who is the founder of Article 3 Project, and both he and the staff reporter for World Tribune did a great job of explaining what I've tried to explain as a layman for 40 years about Watergate, and now how to make the comparison between the two. And it's really pretty simple. Crossfire Hurricane, the first thing it did is it weaponized the intelligence agencies of this country against its own citizens. It wasn't just Trump. There's George Papadopoulos, this poor young guy who was trying to make a name for himself during the 2016 presidential run so that he would hopefully get a position in a future Trump administration. What they did to that man, that poor bastard went to jail. Okay? So they used it against him. They used it against Navarro. They used it against Michael Flynn. Okay? They created a scam in order to pin that scam on innocent victims. So, and it was all by using our intelligence networks of the federal government.
With the tactic.
And as I already...
Yeah, with the tactic to try to get people to roll on Trump, which nobody did because there's nothing to roll on. Yeah.
Because there was nothing there. And so part of what they did was they actually targeted Trump. And then once they successfully targeted him, then they continued to go after him after he assumed the office of president in 2017. Now, when you look at that and you compare it to Watergate, everybody talks about Nixon. The only thing Nixon did wrong in Watergate was he remained loyal to his shock troops, like G. Gordon Liddy, who was a spook, okay, who broke into the Watergate Hotel and rifled through the Democrat National Committee's headquarters to try and find, intel that they could use. Oppo research is what they call it.
Yep.
And Nixon knew nothing about this. When he did find out about it is when, out of loyalty to the people who were trying to do him good, he tried to cover it up. That is what he ended up resigning for.
Yeah.
Now compare that to all these lies that were manufactured, like the Steele dossier.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knew it was a piece of garbage, Rudy.
Yeah.
Obama knew it. Biden knew it. Hillary knew it. And Comey knew it. And so did the media. But they kept pushing that along. Now compare that again to Watergate. Okay? You have a seated president who is calling the shots on pushing this false narrative out into the world that, hey, you know what? We got something here. It doesn't look right, doesn't smell right. We need to investigate it. He's the guy who was behind the whole thing. And so ultimately, what did that do? It destroyed the public trust in every major American institution, governmental institution, not to mention the media. You know, I don't watch Pretty Boy Sean anymore. I don't listen to him on radio anymore. But one thing Hannity's right about, journalism in this country, I'm talking about corporate journalism, is dead. It has been dead for 15, 20 years. Okay? And so that's part of what was destroyed. The integrity of what many people, not me, I didn't think the New York Slimes was a vaunted institution of journalism. I knew all about the Schultzberger family. And so, but the average person who is not like me and you, who doesn't eat, drink, and sleep national and international policy and how it affects us as individuals, just the average Joe Schmuckatelli, who, as I've said on prior shows, every 2 and 4 years does his civic duty, goes out and votes for the best candidate they think should hold the position of that office, and they vote. These are the people who are now looking at the alphabet channels and at the Gray Lady and at the Washington Post and the LA Times and saying, you're not even fit to be on the bottom of my bird's cage.
Right.
You're not worth $1.50 it costs.
That's why
pick up.
Yeah, that's why you see them trying to reform, whether it's CBS hiring Barry Weiss or the Washington Post bringing in conservatives to their opinion pages. You see a reform happening because of what you just said, or at least
correct.
Right, at least what seems to be reform.
Right. So the other thing to take away is just because Trump won and we have control of both houses of Congress doesn't mean that the deep staters aren't still doing their dirty work. You know, it's still ongoing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the entire Watergate scandal ended with Nixon's resignation. Crossfire Hurricane never ended, buddy. Okay, the same deep state plot that was used against Trump 10 years ago is being used right now. The difference is they were once the hunters; they're now the hunted, and that's why they're continuing to try and implement their plan, because one by one they're starting to fall. You know, Comey is probably never going to see a courtroom, let alone a jail cell.
Right.
But just the fact that motherfucker has had to go out and spend money on a mouthpiece to help get him off the hook.
Yeah.
I want him to taste even a teaspoon of what he did
Right.
to innocent people.
Right.
Because one thing he ain't is innocent.
Right. It's just a matter of indicting him, I think, was enough. Everybody knows a grand jury can indict a ham sandwich, so it doesn't matter. So what happens from here, indict Letitia James, indict John Bolton, indict them, whatever happens down the
Correct.
road, who cares? You know, we're doing our due diligence, and everybody knows the way the courts are lately, depending on what kind of judge you get. Who knows? You know, I was even going to say that's why they probably got rid of his daughter as a prosecutor, because God forbid his daughter ended up prosecuting her father's case. You know, I've seen stranger things. So, any last words? I think we're going to close out here. It's a little after 10 o'clock. We've been going for about 50 minutes. Any parting words for our guests tonight?
For our guests, is that what you said?
Yeah. For our viewers.
Yes. You know, the only thing I can add to what we've already discussed tonight is to keep the faith. Things are going to continue to progress forward, but it's still going to be a rocky road. And whether it's peace in the Middle East or whether it's the economy here, we have to be prepared for what comes our way. And look, tonight I'm a happy man. Let's just leave it there. Let's just look forward to having another conversation next week.
Next week. Keep our fingers crossed and our prayers going out to all those things we want to happen in the world that are good. All right, Perry. Thanks for joining me today. Episode 125 of Tuesdays with Perry. I'll talk to you next week, my brother.
All right. I am looking forward to it. And until then, Rudy, keep enjoying the fine fall weather back home because I know you've been coveting it.
I still miss summer. I felt like I lost a little bit of summer there, but I had so much to do and I still have a lot to do. We'll talk next week. Thanks for joining me. See you, my friend.
All righty, buddy. Take care now.
All right, see you.
Bye-bye.
All right, there we go. Tuesdays with Perry, episode 125. Thanks for joining us this Tuesday evening. Join us every Tuesday around 9 o'clock or so. Live stream, X, Locals, Rumble, YouTube. We'll see you next week. Or you can join me tomorrow, Rudy's Revelation. Every day, Monday through Friday. Live stream, 10 a.m. on Rumble, Locals, YouTube. See you tomorrow. Peace out.